Good morning, everybody. Today, according to our schedule, we are supposed to start with Upali Sutta. It is in Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 58. I believe you all have read the Sutta. This Upali is not the same as Upali who was in charge of the Vinaya at the first council. That Upali also is one of the most eminent monks. As we mentioned yesterday, I think day before yesterday, that Upali was ordained together with Ananda, Bhagu, Kimbila, Bhaddiya, Anuruddha and Devadatta. Upali was a barber belonging to a lower caste, and some believe that he was barber of the Buddha. Anyway, Upali, that part we don't know, but Upali is very famous for his mastery of Vinaya. And many monks were very happy to learn Vinaya from Venerable Upali. And one day Venerable Upali requested the Buddha to let him go to spend time in the forest like Venerable Mahakassapa. But Buddha did not give his permission for him to spend in the forest, because he was very helpful to other bhikkhus to learn Vinaya. Even the Buddha has a very great regard for Venerable Upali. And so when these 5 other princes, like Anuruddha, Bhagu, Kimbila, Bhaddiya and Devadatta, they all were Anuruddha, Devadatta and all these were royal princes. They, on their way, they collected all their jewelry, expensive clothes and so forth, gave to Upali and asked him to take them home and deliver them to their parents. Upali refused to do that. He thought that since they were princes and Upali was a barber, a poor man, and when he was carrying all these expensive things, he can be caught by the police, thinking that he has killed those princes and stole their properties, and therefore he did not want to take that risk. He returned all of them to them and said, "I also like to become a monk." So they all went together, and then they asked him to ask the Buddha to ordain him first, so that they would have a chance to pay respect to this low caste person, to make themselves humble. As princes, they were very proud. When they pay respect to a person of the low caste, they would become humble. Anyway, that is the story. And then with this Venerable Upali, there is a Upali in Thera Gatha, there is a special section, Upali Thera Gatha. Anyway, that is one Upali. I mention this not to confuse this Upali in our story, in this sutta that we are going to discuss. So, as you see, the Buddha was living in Nalanda, and Digha Tapasi, as you have read, is an ordained disciple of Nigantha Nattaputta. And he also, just like the Buddha, went on his alms round, and after eating his meal, he also ate only one meal a day in the morning, and he did not eat in the afternoon, just like the Buddha's practice, or Buddha's disciples' practice. So then he washed his alms bowl and directly went to see the Buddha and had a conversation. In this conversation, Digha Naka or Digha Tapasi, not Digha Naka, Digha Tapasi. Digha means long time, Tapasi means one who has practiced austere practices. Here, that means he has been an ascetic for a long time. That's what it really means, Digha Tapasi. That meaning is not given in any explanation, but the meaning is that very well seasoned, old mendicant, but the disciple of Nigantha Nattaputta, Mahavira. We have discussed who Nigantha Nattaputta was in our previous discussions. When he went to see the Buddha, Buddha said, seats are all available, choose whatever seat you like to sit. So he chose a seat and sat down. As he himself was a disciple of Nigantha Nattha and also a monastic, he addressed the Buddha as friend, Hauso Gotama. Many other people addressed the Buddha Bhavan Gotamo, but Digha Tapasi addressed the Buddha Hauso Gotama. You can see in the text Evaṁ Hauso Gotama Achinnam Nigantha Nattaputta Kammaṁ. So Buddha asked the Digha Tapasi, how many actions does Nigantha Nattaputta describe for the performance of evil actions, for the perpetration of evil actions? So Digha Tapasi said that he does not teach, and his tradition is not familiar with the word action. They rather use the word rod, danda. We mentioned yesterday that in their vocabulary, the word karma or action is not available. Rather they use the word danda. Danda means either stick or punishment. Then the conversation turned into a very interesting point. Digatapasi said, Nigantha is not accustomed to use the description action. The Nigantha Nattaputta is accustomed to use the description rod. Then the Buddha asked, how many rods, how many kinds of rods Nigantha Nattaputta described for the performance of evil actions and for perpetration of evil actions. Friend Gotama, also Gotama, Nigantha Nattaputta describes three kinds of evil, three kinds of rods for the perpetration of evil actions. For performance of evil actions, perpetration of evil actions, that is the bodily rod, verbal rod, and the mental rod. Now, then the Buddha asked, which of these rods Digatapasi, the Nigantha Nattaputta, considered to be more serious. Body rod is one. Then Buddha asked, how many rods? He said 3 rods, body rods, verbal rods, and mental rods. Then, of these kinds of rods, Tapasi thus analyzed and distinguished which kind of rod does Nigantha Nattaputta describe as the most reprehensible for the performance of evil action. For the performance of evil actions, for perpetration of evil action, the bodily rod, or the verbal rod, or the mental rod. So naturally he said it's a bodily rod. Then Buddha asked him 3 times. This is the way the Buddha normally may want the person to confirm what he says, asking 3 times. This is the tradition in taking the refuge. We take refuge 3 times. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Sanඝaṃ saranam gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi, and so forth, 3 times, in order to confirm our commitment. And that is the same in debates at that time, because there was no written agreement. So later on they cannot say, no, I did not say that. In order to confirm the position, Buddha asked him 3 times. Each time he said the same thing. Then he used the same technique and asked the Buddha, and you, friend Gotama, how many kinds of rod do you describe for the performance of evil actions and for the perpetration of evil actions? Tapasi, the Tathagata is not accustomed to use the description rod. Buddha said that he is not accustomed to it, but he asked, then what do you accustomed to? Buddha said, Tapasi, I describe 3 kinds of action. Now see, the word action is in many ways more meaningful than the word rod. the very word rod implies punishment. Action does not imply punishment. The rod, there is no good rod, bad rod. Rod is rod. It can be decayed rod, or old rod, or slim rod, and so forth. But still, rod means rod. Action can be good or bad. And therefore the Buddha used the word action rather than a rod. You can make the action good or action bad, depending on the mental state, depending on the intention. And therefore, in every word that the Buddha used to describe his teaching has a consistency. So later on somebody cannot say that his words are inconsistent. And that is why Buddha always used this word. Describe three kinds of actions. And Digatapasi asked him, what are they? Buddha said, same way, bodily, verbal, and mental. Then he asked, how then, friend Gautama, is bodily action one, verbal action another, and mental action is still another? Buddha said, these three are three. Verbal actions is one, bodily actions is another, and mental actions is another. And then again he asked the same question that the Buddha asked him. Which of them he considered to be more serious? And Buddha said, of course, mental action. And Digatapasi repeated the same thing to make Buddha confirm his position. Having confirmed the Buddha's position, Digatapasi decided not to continue the conversation anymore, because Digatapasi has an experienced person, matured person. He knew if he got involved in the discussion, it will not be in his favor. So he said, okay. He got up and went and reported to Nigantha Nattaputta. In the crowd there was Upali. He's a well-known merchant and lay supporter of Nigantha Nattaputta. When Digatapasi made this report to Nigantha Nattaputta, Upali said, when Nigantha asked what the conversation you had with the Buddha and so forth, then Digatapasi reported. So Nigantha Nattaputta confirmed it. Then Upali said, when this was said, the Upali, Householder Upali said to Nigantha Nattaputta, good venerable son. On the part of Digatapasi, the venerable Tapasi has answered the recluse Gautama like a well-taught disciple who understands his teacher's dispensation rightly. What does this trivial mental rod count for, and in comparison to the gross bodily rod? So then he boasted. He said, I go and refute recluse Gautama. Now at this time Upali did not know very much about the Buddha, and therefore he simply used same ordinary term to describe the Buddha, simply saying recluse Gautama, calling him by his first name, family name. And his boasting, he said, I will go, and you can see the three similes he has given here, to show the way how he defeat the Buddha in the debate. So he went. So before he went, of course, you can see Nigantha Nattaputta agreed to his going, and Nigantha, knowing Buddha's skill, tried to persuade Nigantha Nattaputta not to let him go. And he said, for the recluse Gautama is magician and knows a converting magic by which he converts the disciples of other sectarians. It is very beautiful way of telling that the Buddha was a magician. I think it is very good for us to remember the Pali word. Samano Bhante Gautama Mayavi Avattening Mayang Janati Yaya Anyatityanam Savake Avatteti. Avattana means you turn around. He knows Avattini Maya. Maya means delusion. He can delude the mind of others and turn them around to his belief. And therefore, I don't think Upali should go and have discussion with the Buddha. Then Nigantha Nattaputta said, it is impossible, Tapasi. It cannot happen that Householder Upali should go over to discipleship under the recluse Gautama, but it is possible. It can happen that the recluse Gautama might come over to the discipleship under the Householder Upali. Go, householder, go. And refute the recluse Gautama's doctrine. For either I should refute the recluse Gautama's doctrine, or else Nigantha Diga Tapasi or Yasha. So he put Upali in the same position as Nigantha Nattaputta and Diga Tapasi. Nigantha Nattaputta, the Upali is a lay person, but Nigantha Nattaputta had such a confidence in Upali, he put him on the same pedestal as Nigantha Nattaputta and Diga Tapasi. So he sent, when he went there, after all this, 3 times Diga Tapasi tried to persuade him not to go, but each time Nigantha Nattaputta said no, he should go. When he went there, he completely changed. At the very first time he saw the Buddha, he began to call him Venerable Sir. He began with calling him Recluse Gautama. As soon as he went there, he said, Venerable Sir, Bhante, Sadhu Sadhu Bhante, Tapasi Yathatang Suttavata Savake Sammadeva Sattu Sasanang Ajanantena Evam Diga Tapasina Nigantena Bhagavato Bhyagatang King He Sobhati Chavo Manodando Imasa Evam Olarika Sakaya Dandas Upanidhaya. He said. As soon as he saw the Buddha and started the conversation, he began to call the Buddha Venerable Sir. Venerable Sir, Householder Upali replied, and he rose from his, he went to the Buddha. Okay. What was your conversation with him like, Venerable Sir? Then the Buddha gave him the full report of the conversation. When this was said, the Householder Upali said to the Buddha, the Blessed One, Good, Venerable Sir. He changed his attitude and started calling the Buddha Bhante. Why is that? Buddha's thoughts, words, deeds are in concordance, in agreement. When somebody sees the Buddha, from his appearance, people can tell that this is a most dignified person, majestic person, honest person. Nigantha Nattaputta also came from a royal family. Nigantha Nattaputta also a Sakyan. But he did not have these qualities. For somebody to be impressed by his look. But Buddha's behavior itself was so impressive that when somebody saw him, he immediately realized that this must be somebody extraordinary. Many people, what is that man, Upaka, after enlightenment when the Buddha was walking to Benares, Upaka, then Bavari, and so forth, several individuals, by seeing the Buddha, realized that this is an enlightened person. So when Upali went to see the Buddha, to refute him with all this boasting, he changed his mind. And then started the conversation. When this was said, the Householder Upali said, good, and so forth. Householder, if you will debate on the basis of truth, we might have some conversation about this. Because he confirmed Diga Tapasi's contention. So he agreed. What do you think, Householder? Here some Niganthas might be afflicted, suffering and gravely ill with an illness, needing treatment by cold water, which his vows prohibit, and he must refuse cold water, though mentally longing for it. That is the part that the translator has added, and use only the permissible hot water, thus keeping his vows bodily and verbally. Because he does not get cold water, he might die. Now, Householder, where would the Nigantha Nattaputta describe his rebirth as taking place? So, Upali has to admit, Venerable Sir, there are gods called mind-bound. They are called in in Pali they are called Bhante Manosatta Nama Deva. Mind-bound devas. And Buddha said, why were they be born there? He said, mind-bound, he would be reborn there. Why is this? Because when he died, he was still bound by attachment in the mind. So, manosatta deva, mano patibaddha. Mano patibaddha means bound by the mind. Now, is going to trap. Upali is going to trap. Householder, pay attention how you reply. What you said afterward does not agree with what you said before, nor does what you said before agree with what you said afterwards. Yet you made this statement, I will debate on the basis of truth. Venerable Sir, so let us have some conversation about this. And then Buddha mentioned these 4 restraints that we mentioned yesterday. What are the 4 restraints? They are restraint as regard to all waters, which is called in Pali Chatuyama Sangvara. Chatuyama Sangvara Sanguto. What are they? Sabba Vari Varito. Vari means water. Remember we say Yatha Vari Vahapura when we transfer merits. Their Vari is water. Sabba Vari Varito. That is curbed by all curbs. Actually, Varita means avoiding. Charita Sila, Varita Sila, and therefore in the categories of Sila, morality, Charita means practice, Varita means avoiding. Sabba Vari, Varito means avoiding all waters, especially cold waters. Then Sabbhavari Yuto means Sabbhavari Yuto clamped by all curbs. Vari Yuto, that is avoiding all water related to evil water, that means unclean water. Then Sabbhavari Duto, that is the water that is used for, is called all evil has he washed away. Using water, using all kind of water, that is, he has cleansed and purified. Sabbhavari Duto. Then Sabbhavari Puto. He lives suffused with the sense of evil held at bay. That is one translation. Claimed by all curbs. In other words, he does not use cold water. He restrains using dirty water. He has used water to wash all his evil. And he held all his evil at bay washing, cleaning himself with water. All related to water. Sabbhavari, varito, sabbhavari yuto, sabbhavari dhuto, sabbhavari puto. All purification related to water. That means water is the cleansing agent, purifying agent. Then, having used these 4 types of restraints, mentioning these 4 types of restraints, Buddha said,
Bhante, is that when he's talking about the curbs, or those are the restraints he's using?
Yes. Curb, he used the word curb.
But it's cleansing, right?
Avoiding.
Okay.
Avoiding. And yet, when going forward and returning, he brings about the destruction of many small living beings. What result does the Nigantha Nattaputta describes for him? That means when you walk back and forth, unintentionally you may kill various insects. Then Buddha asked, what kind of results Nigantha Nattaputta describes for that kind of actions? Then Upali said, Venerable Sir, Nigantha Nattaputta does not describe what is unintended as greatly reprehensible. Now, Upali's, what worked in the Upali's mind was not what the Buddha meant. Buddha meant when you don't do anything unintentionally, it doesn't have a great result, great effect, wholesome or unwholesome, because unintentional. But Upali's mind was working that intention has nothing to do with anything, it is a physical thing. So when Buddha asked this question, he said, his answer of course is also unintentional. Nigantha Nattaputta does not describe what is unintended as great reprehensible. And that is what exactly the Buddha says. When something you do without intention, that doesn't have great effect. When the Upali unintentionally confirmed Buddha's teaching, Buddha said, but if one intends it, householder, then it is greatly reprehensible, Venerable Sir. But under which of these 3 rods does the Nigantha Nattaputta describes volition, householder? Under the mental rod, Venerable Sir. Householder, pay attention how you reply. What you said afterwards does not agree with what you said before. Nor does what you said before agree with what you said afterwards. Yet you made this statement, I will debate on the so forth. Buddha repeated the same thing. So what Upali actually confirmed was what the Buddha was telling all along. That is, mental action is more serious than physical and verbal actions. So again he repeated his disagreement with the Buddha. Then Buddha went on giving him some other examples. Suppose a man came here brandishing a sword and spoke thus, in one moment, in one instant, I will make all the living beings in this town of Nalanda into one mass of flesh, into one heap of flesh. What do you think, householder? Would that man be able to do that? Venerable Sir, 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 men would not be able to make all the living beings in this town of Nalanda into one mass of flesh, into one heap of flesh, and in one moment or instant. So what does a single trivial man count for? Now, that is the physical action. They say physical action is more serious than verbal action. So Buddha, in order to prove that physical action is not that serious, even one person comes and tries to kill all beings in the city. Upali admitted that even not 50 people can do that, physically. Then Buddha comes to his very important point. What do you think, householder? Suppose some recluse or Brahmins came here possessed of supernatural power and attained to mastery of mind, and he spoke thus, I will reduce this town of Nalanda to ashes with one mental act of hate. What do you think, householder? Would such a recluse of Brahmins be able to do that? No, this is as somebody asked me the other day, whether the gods can do evil things, evil deeds. I answered that according to Buddhist tradition, gods don't do that. Similarly, according to Buddhist tradition, when somebody practices meditation and attain jhanas and gain supernatural powers, would not do harmful things. But in his time, there were people, recluses, mendicants, who practiced meditation, gained supernatural powers, and performed evil deeds to destroy, hurt others. This has been practiced those days. So Buddha reminded this man that if a recluse comes and says that he would destroy the whole Nalanda and reduce it to ashes by one mental act, asked him, is it possible? Upali said, such a recluse or Brahmin possesses supernormal power and attain to mastery of mind would be able to reduce 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 Nalandas to ashes with one mental act of hate. So now he showed the power of mind, mental action, and the Buddha repeated him again, reminded him his position again, and now he is gradually swallowing the Buddha's bait, so to say. Then Buddha gave another example. This is also legend, very popularly believed in that tradition, that time, that Dandaka, Kalinga, Majjha and Matanga forests became forests because of similar actions, mental actions of recluses in the past. Then finally, after giving all these 4 examples, example number 1, when somebody is sick, according to Nigantha Nattaputta's teaching, needing cold water, if the person does not get cold water, he would die and be reborn in Manosatta, the mind-made state. Second was somebody coming with what do you call somebody walking and trample living beings, and would that become very serious karma, his serious fraud? He said no. Third was somebody coming with a knife and kill all beings. Is it possible? He said no, not even 50 people. But if somebody, fourth example is, if somebody comes with supernatural powers and with one firm evil wish can destroy whole Nalanda. And then Buddha gave the fifth example, that all these 4 cities were destroyed by such evil actions. After giving these examples, Upali was so convinced, Upali felt so humble. Venerable Sir, I was satisfied and pleased by the Blessed One's very first simile. Nevertheless, I thought I would oppose the Blessed One. Thus, since I desired to hear the Blessed One's magnificent and Blessed One's varied solutions to the problem. Magnificent Venerable Sir, magnificent Venerable Sir. Now, this statement, magnificent Venerable Sir, also is made by somebody who has already accepted the Buddha's teaching. Abhikkantambo Bhante, Abhikkantambo Bhante. Abhikkantam Bhante, so forth. If somebody is not convinced and has not accepted the Buddha's teaching, he would say Abhikkantam Bhogotama, Abhikkantam Bhogotama. You see, Upali, you can see in some other suttas, I think Apannaka Sutta, Mahasakuludayi Sutta and so forth, at the end they said Abhikkantam Bhogotama, Abhikkantam Bhogotama. Excellent Gotama, excellent Gotama. But when somebody was convinced and became his follower, he would say Abhikkantam Bhante, Abhikkantam Bhante. Abhikkanta means excellent Venerable Sir, excellent Venerable Sir. Abhikkantam Bhogotama means excellent Gotama, excellent Gotama. In Bodhiraja Kumara Sutta and so forth, you can see they became Buddha's followers and then they proclaimed or exclaimed Abhikkantam Bhante, Abhikkantam Bhante. You can see the difference when you read at the end of the discourse, whether the person has become Buddha's follower or just was pleased with his explanation. If somebody was simply pleased with his explanation, he would simply say Abhikkantam Gotama. If the person was convinced and became Buddha's follower, he would say Abhikkantam Bhante. Now Upali said Abhikkantam Bhante. Now, I want to draw your attention to things that followed after that. That is the most important part of the whole discourse. Then Upali said, he said, Upasakam mam bhagavadhare tu ajadagya panupetan saranangatanti. Venerable Sir, magnificent Sir, magnificent Venerable Sir, the Blessed One has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. Venerable Sir, I go to the Buddha for refuge, I go to the Dhamma for refuge, I go to the Sangha for refuge. Let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge. What kind of Dhamma Buddha cleared to him? He said, made the Dhamma clear in many ways. What Dhamma did Buddha clear to him in this discourse? Buddha did not give a long discourse. He was simply answering questions and said most important is mental action, and that was what Buddha confirmed. Others were similes to refute Upali's and Digatapasi's views. And Upali at the end said, when the Blessed One made the Dhamma very clear in many ways. Now at this point Buddha did not teach in too much Dhamma, but he made one Dhamma very clear. What Dhamma is that? Dhamma which we call Kamma. Here Dhamma, Kamma are used in the same sense. Buddha cleared the meaning of Kamma, and he showed to Upali that the mental volitional action is more important than the physical action. And that is where we always that is how we always say, Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami, the thinking I declare, O monks, kamma. It roots from this kind of statements. And this is a very good example to illustrate that particular statement of the Buddha. That is, the mental, volitional action is called kamma. Why? Whatever we do physically and verbally originates in the mind, isn't it? You cannot say anything without thinking. You cannot do anything without thinking, unless of course something happens voluntarily, like our blood circulation and heartbeat and inhaling, exhaling and so forth. These things happen without any intention. But whatever we do involuntarily, voluntarily, right? With will. Whatever we do with will starts in the mind. And therefore, all the sources of good and evil originate in the mind. Asavas are in the mind, anusayas are in the mind, fetters are in the mind, hindrances are in the mind, faith, virya, mindfulness, concentration, all originate in the mind. And therefore, all karmas have their root in the mind. And that is what Buddha wanted to prove. And that is what Buddha clarified to Upali. And Upali, being very, very intelligent person, grasped this meaning at the very first simile that the Buddha gave to him. Upali was not just an ordinary person. That's why Nigantha Nattaputta put him on the same pedestal as himself and Digatapasi. But Upali proved to Digatapasi and Nigantha Nattaputta that Upali was even better than Digatapasi and Nigantha Nattaputta. Because Digatapasi could not stand the Buddha's questioning. So he knew that danger is awaiting, danger is coming, I better leave. He left. Upali was so intelligent and has a lot of karma, good karma in him, and he thought this is the best opportunity to learn Dhamma. You know, when somebody seeing diamond does not turn his back to diamond to go and collect copper. He would stand with diamond. So, when Upali saw the Buddha, where he was explaining Dhamma, Upali stuck and listened to Dhamma. And one who listens to Dhamma properly, and when after listening to Dhamma, when the mind becomes very clear, the person stick with that. And that's what happened to Upali. And the Dhamma Buddha made clear to Upali was this, Dhamma, law of karma actually. When Upali said, this is another magnificent thing of the Buddha, remarkable character of the Buddha. What is that? When Upali said, let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life, not for a short period of time. Ajjatanke pānupetam saranangatanti. Pānupetam, pāna upeta. Pāna means life. Upeta means end. From now till the end of this life, as long as I live, I will be your follower. Then Buddha showed his magnificent, remarkable character. He said, investigate thoroughly, householder. It is good for such a well-known people like you to investigate thoroughly. Upali, this is the first time we met. You didn't spend too much time with me. This is the first time you learned Dhamma. Don't rush to accept it. Think. Have you ever heard any religious teacher asking you to think when you go and they keep knocking on your door and forcing you and trying to push things through your throat to accept their belief. But here, the man came to the Buddha, well-known man, and wanted to accept his teaching, and Buddha said, think about it. Then Upali said, Upali was very pleased with the Buddha, and even he became even more pleased because Buddha did not accept him as his follower very quickly. Whereas if he went to another religious teacher, he would have accepted him quickly and taken him in a procession on the street, declaring to the world that man like Upali became his follower. Buddha instead asked him to think more carefully. He declared that for this reason, he would take refuge in the Buddha for the second time. First he took refuge, then Buddha asked him to think about it, and he was amazed and said, had I gone to another religious teacher, he would have taken me in a procession into the street, declaring to the world that I have become his follower. Now you ask me to think. For this reason, Venerable Sir, I want to go to your refuge for the second time. And then again Buddha said, Upali, householder, your family has long supported the Nigantha Nattaputta, and you should consider that alms should be given to him when they come. That is another noble quality of the Buddha. That is, he asked, you have been supporting Nigantha Nattaputta and his followers. Don't stop that. Although you accept me as your teacher, follow my Dhamma and Sangha, but don't stop your support to your former teachers. And Upali was pleased even more, and he said, that he had heard that the Buddha advised people to support him and his disciples. Now he heard from the Buddha's own mouth that he asked him to support his rivals. Nigantha Nattaputta, you can remember yesterday's discussion in Abhay Kumara Sutta. Abhay Kumara Sutta, I think we discussed that Nigantha Nattaputta trained Abhay Raja to ask Buddha some questions to make Buddha a liar. So the Nigantha Nattaputta's intention always was to hurt the Buddha. Even then, Buddha did not want to hurt Nigantha Nattaputta. Even then Buddha knew all this all along. The way how Upali came, Buddha knew that Upali was Nigantha Natta's disciple, and he knew how Nigantha Natta talked about the Buddha. But Buddha was never had the slightest scruple of displeasure, disappointment, anger towards Nigantha Natta. And that's why he asked him to continue his support to Nigantha Nattaputta. So Upali was even pleased, more pleased, and said, when Buddha asked him to continue his support, Upali said, anyway, we shall know the time for that, Venerable Sir. So he took refuge in the Triple Gem for the third time. And now, Buddha used a very special technique. That is, I mentioned yesterday, the Buddha used his Indriya Paro Pariyatti Jnana. Only the Buddha could use that. Only the Buddha had this particular knowledge. Indriya Paro Pariyatti Jnana means it is of course not mentioned in the Sutta itself, but the That is how Buddha read other people's development of spiritual faculties. Indriya means faculties. The way how the pariyatti means the way, the method. The way how other people's spiritual faculties are working, he saw. That means he saw Upali's spiritual faculties were very slowly growing, maturing and developing to very high degree. Then the Buddha looked into his mind, with his own mind, and saw that this man's Dhamma seed was ready to sprout. Buddha then gave his gradual teaching. This is called Anupubbi Katha. This Anupubbi Katha also is a very special technique that the Buddha used. In the Anupubbi Katha means gradual teaching. In gradual teaching, the first thing Buddha taught was Dana Katha, talking on generosity. Second, the talk on ethics, ethical practice. That's called Sila Katha. Then talk on going to heaven, Sagga Katha. Why did he talk about going to heaven? Because when you practice dana and sila, you can go to heaven. When you practice dana, generosity, and practice morality, you can go to heaven. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You practice generosity and practice morality, you can go to heaven. So that is why all other tradition people talk about going to heaven. That's okay. We don't quarrel about that. Let them go to heaven. Then Buddha says, Sagga Katha. Sagga Katha means going to heaven. That is the third step. Now, a person listening to this kind of discourse, now practicing morality, generosity, and going to heaven, then in his mind he is enjoying heavenly bliss, heavenly names, heavenly pleasure, heavenly life, heavenly this and that, he is enjoying. Then Buddha gave another dose. He said, Kamanang Asada. The pleasure, enjoyment of sensual pleasure. So when we talk about enjoyment of sensual pleasure, while he is in his imagination enjoying sensual pleasure in heaven, he is very happy. Buddha was talking about it. He did not condemn it. That is called Kamanang Asada. While he is enjoying sensual pleasure in his imagination, then Buddha gave another dose. That is called Adinava. The danger of sensual pleasures. Even heavenly sensual pleasures has danger.